Our story begins on the shadowed world of Exegol, where jagged spires pierce a sky choked with storm clouds. Lightning cracks across the desolate landscape, illuminating the Sith Eternal's citadel, a fortress of obsidian and bone carved into the planet's crust. Beneath its vaulted ceilings, where the air hums with the dark side's hunger, a young boy named Obi-Wan Kenobi kneels before a crimson altar. His eyes, sharp and haunted, reflect the flickering flames of ritual braziers. Taken from Tatooine as an infant, stolen from his mother's arms by Sith cultists seeking a vessel for their eternal prophecy, Obi-Wan has known no light, no Jedi, only the cold teachings of the Sith Eternal. Trained to wield the Force as a weapon, his heart is a battlefield of loyalty and doubt, forged in the crucible of Exegol's unrelenting dogma. Yet, deep within, a spark of defiance flickers, a whisper of something the Sith could not erase. The Citadel's halls echo with chants as Obi-Wan, now a young man of 20, clad in black robes, strides toward the chamber of the Eternal. His masters, faceless priests shrouded in shadow, have summoned him for a trial that will bind him forever to the Sith or cast him into oblivion. His lightsaber, a jagged hilt pulsing with a crimson blade, hangs at his side, its weight a constant reminder of the blood he has spilled to prove his worth. But as he walks, his mind churns. The teachings of the Sith Eternal, power through sacrifice, order through fear, clash with fragments of dreams he cannot explain. A woman's voice, soft and grieving, calling his name across a desert wind. These visions gnaw at him, threatening to unravel the discipline he has clung to since childhood. In the shadowed antechamber, a figure waits, one whose presence stirs both dread and curiosity in Obi-Wan's heart. Darth Maul, the Zabrak warrior, stands with arms crossed, his yellow eyes glinting like twin suns. Maul, a former apprentice of Darth Sidious, has been cast aside by his master and now serves the Sith Eternal as an enforcer, a blade to test their acolytes. His hatred for Sidious burns hotter than Exegol's core, and he sees in Obi-Wan a potential ally, or a rival to crush. Maul's presence is no accident. The priests have chosen him to oversee Obi-Wan's trial, a mission to hunt a rogue Sith acolyte who has fled to Dathomir. This task will test Obi-Wan's loyalty, but Maul's motives are murkier, his words laced with hints of rebellion against the Sith Eternal's iron grip. As Obi-Wan meets Maul's gaze, he senses a fracture in the Zabrak's resolve, a crack that mirrors his own. The trial is set, but the path ahead is uncertain. For Obi-Wan's journey will not only challenge his allegiance, but reshape the galaxy's fate. The Citadel's gates groan open, and Obi-Wan boards a sleek black shuttle bound for Dathomir. As the ship pierces Exegol's stormy veil, he sits in silence, the hum of the engines drowned by the storm within him. The Sith Eternal have raised him to be their perfect weapon, yet the dreams of Tatooine persist, growing sharper with each passing year. He sees a woman's face, her eyes filled with love and loss, and feels a pull toward something beyond the dark side's grasp. Maul, seated across from him, watches with predatory intensity, his silence more unnerving than any taunt. The Zabrak's own scars, physical and otherwise, tell a story of betrayal, and Obi-Wan wonders if Maul sees him as a tool, a threat, or something else entirely. The shuttle descends toward Dathomir's crimson forests, where their prey, a rogue acolyte named Vrenna, has sought refuge among the Night Sisters. Obi-Wan's mission is clear: kill Vrenna and prove his devotion. But as the ship touches down, he feels the Force stirring, whispering of choices yet to come. On Dathomir, the air is thick with mist and the scent of decay. Obi-Wan and Maul move through the tangled undergrowth, their steps silent but purposeful. The Night Sisters' village looms ahead, its bone-white structures glowing faintly under a blood-red moon. Vrenna, a pale woman with eyes like shattered glass, has allied herself with Mother Talzin, seeking to wield Dathomir's magic against the Sith Eternal. Obi-Wan's heart races as he senses her presence, not just as a target but as a mirror of his own doubts. Vrenna's betrayal fascinates him. She has rejected the Sith Eternal's dogma, choosing freedom over servitude. Maul, sensing Obi-Wan's hesitation, growls a warning, his dual-bladed lightsaber igniting with a hiss. The village erupts into chaos as Night Sisters emerge, their green ichor bolts slicing through the mist. Obi-Wan's crimson blade meets theirs, his movements precise but mechanical, as if his body fights while his mind drifts elsewhere. He cuts down a Night Sister, her scream echoing in his ears, and feels a pang of guilt he cannot name. Maul charges ahead, his fury a whirlwind of red light, carving through the Night Sisters with savage grace. Obi-Wan follows, but his eyes lock onto Vrenna, standing atop a ritual altar, her hands weaving magic that pulses with defiance. She calls out to him, not with words but through the Force, her voice a plea. The Sith Eternal are a lie, their prophecy a chain. Obi-Wan's blade falters, and for a moment he sees not an enemy but a reflection of his own buried questions. Maul, sensing the shift, turns on him, his eyes blazing with accusation. The Zabrak's saber swings, not at Vrenna, but at Obi-Wan, forcing him to parry in a clash that shakes the altar. The Night Sisters scatter as the two warriors duel, their blades a storm of crimson against the moonlit ruins. Obi-Wan fights to survive, but Maul's words cut deeper than any blade. He accuses Obi-Wan of weakness, of clinging to a light the Sith Eternal burned away. Yet, as their sabers lock, Obi-Wan feels a surge of clarity. He disengages, leaping back, and spares Vrenna, letting her vanish into the mist. Maul's roar of rage echoes, but Obi-Wan stands firm, his choice a quiet rebellion against the darkness that raised him. The mission fails, and the shuttle ride back to Exegol is a crucible of tension. Maul's silence is a blade at Obi-Wan's throat, his loyalty to the Sith Eternal unshaken, but his hatred for Obi-Wan now personal. Obi-Wan, however, feels a strange calm. Vrenna's words linger, intertwining with his dreams of Tatooine, and he begins to question the Sith Eternal's purpose. The Citadel awaits, its priests ready to judge his failure, but Obi-Wan's mind is elsewhere, drawn to a new destination, Tatooine, the source of his visions. He knows the Sith Eternal will not let him go easily, and Maul's watchful gaze promises retribution. As the shuttle pierces Exegol's storms once more, Obi-Wan resolves to uncover the truth of his origins, a path that will lead him to confront not only the Sith Eternal, but the galaxy's hidden puppet master, Darth Sidious. The Force hums with possibility, and Obi-Wan, for the first time, feels the weight of his own destiny. On Tatooine, the twin suns beat down on Mos Eisley, a hive of scum and villainy where Obi-Wan arrives in disguise, his black robes traded for a tattered cloak. The cantina is a cacophony of voices and clinking glasses, but Obi-Wan's focus is singular, finding answers about his mother. The Force guides him to a grizzled moisture farmer, Owen Lars, who speaks of a woman named Shmi Skywalker, taken years ago by raiders and presumed dead. The name Skywalker stirs something in Obi-Wan, a connection he cannot place, but Owen's guarded demeanor hints at deeper secrets. Obi-Wan's questions draw attention, and a bounty hunter's blaster interrupts their talk, forcing him to flee into the dunes. The Jundland wastes become a battlefield as Obi-Wan faces a squad of Sith Eternal assassins sent to reclaim him. His crimson blade dances, cutting through their ranks, but each kill weighs heavier on his soul. He spares the last assassin, a trembling youth, and sends him back to Exegol with a message. He is no longer their weapon. The dunes lead Obi-Wan to a Lars homestead, where he finds a hollow recording hidden in a moisture vaporator. Shmi's voice fills the air, tearful but resolute, speaking of her son, Obi-Wan, stolen by shadows in the night. The recording confirms his origins, but also mentions another child, Anakin, born years later and still on Tatooine. Obi-Wan's heart aches with loss and possibility, but the Sith Eternal's hunters are closing in. He flees to Coruscant, seeking answers in the galaxy's heart, where the Jedi Temple stands as a beacon of a life he never knew. The city planet's neon spires dazzle him, but its underbelly hides dangers. In the lower levels, Obi-Wan encounters Maul again, now acting on his own, driven by a vendetta against both Sidious and the Sith Eternal. Their duel in a derelict factory is brutal, metal screeching as their sabers clash. Maul reveals a fragment of truth. Sidious orchestrated Obi-Wan's abduction, using the Sith Eternal as pawns in a grander scheme. Obi-Wan's rage flares, but he restrains himself, knocking Maul unconscious rather than killing him. The encounter leaves him shaken, his loyalty to the Sith Eternal shattered, but his path unclear. In the Jedi Temple's shadow, Obi-Wan infiltrates the archives, seeking records of Sidious. The Force guides him to a restricted holocron, guarded by a young Jedi named Qui-Gon Jinn. Qui-Gon senses the darkness in Obi-Wan, but also his conflict, offering words of compassion rather than combat. Their brief exchange plants a seed of hope, but alarms blare as Sith Eternal agents storm the temple. Obi-Wan fights his way out, his crimson blade a reluctant ally against his former masters. The streets of Coruscant become a war zone, blaster fire and lightsaber hums echoing through the night. Qui-Gon aids his escape, urging him to seek the truth beyond the dark side. Obi-Wan flees to a stolen starfighter, his mind racing with revelations. Sidious is the Chancellor, Palpatine, manipulating the galaxy from the Senate's heart. As he blasts into hyperspace, bound for Mustafar to confront the Sith Eternal's emissaries, Obi-Wan knows his journey is only beginning. The Force sings of redemption, but the cost will be steep. The starfighter's engines roared as Obi-Wan Kenobi streaked through hyperspace, the swirling blue tunnel a stark contrast to the turmoil within him. Mustafar awaited, its molten rivers and ash-choked skies a fitting stage for the confrontation he sought. The revelations on Coruscant, Darth Sidious as Chancellor Palpatine, the Sith Eternal as his pawns, burned in his mind, each truth a hammer striking the foundations of his upbringing. The Sith Eternal had molded him into a weapon, but their lies were unraveling, and Obi-Wan's dreams of Tatooine, of Shmi Skywalker, pulsed stronger than ever. He gripped the controls, his crimson lightsaber resting beside him, its glow a reminder of the blood it had spilled. Yet the encounter with Qui-Gon Jinn lingered, the Jedi's compassion a faint light in the darkness. Obi-Wan's heart waged war. Loyalty to the Sith Eternal was dead, but could he embrace a path he had never known? The starfighter dropped out of hyperspace, Mustafar's fiery glow filling the viewport. The planet's surface churned with lava flows, its mining facilities stark silhouettes against the molten haze. Obi-Wan landed on a blackened platform, the air thick with sulfur and heat. The Sith Eternal's emissaries, a cadre of hooded priests led by the High Oracle, awaited him in a fortified outpost perched above a lava fall. Their presence in the Force was a cold void, their eyes gleaming with fanatical zeal. Obi-Wan's trial had been a test, but his failure on Dathomir marked him as a heretic. The High Oracle's voice, a rasping hiss, accused him of betrayal, demanding he kneel and renew his oath to the Eternal. Obi-Wan stood defiant, his hand hovering near his saber. The priests raised their staffs, dark energy crackling, and the outpost erupted into violence. Obi-Wan's blade ignited, a crimson arc slicing through the first priest's chest. He moved like a shadow, dodging bolts of Force lightning, his training honed but his heart heavy. Each strike felt like a chain breaking, yet the guilt of his past sins clung to him. The battle spilled onto a narrow bridge spanning the lava river, the heat searing Obi-Wan's skin. The priest's magic wove barriers of shadow, but Obi-Wan's rage, tempered by newfound clarity, shattered them. He fought not for vengeance, but for truth, his movements fluid yet burdened by doubt. The High Oracle unleashed a torrent of dark energy, forcing Obi-Wan to his knees. In that moment, a vision flashed. Shmi's face, her voice pleading for him to find Anakin, her other son. The vision broke the Oracle's hold, and Obi-Wan surged upward, his saber cleaving through the priest's staff and into his heart. The remaining priests fell back, but the outpost's alarms blared. Reinforcements were coming. Obi-Wan fled into the facility's depths, seeking the Oracle's sanctum for answers. There, amidst holocrons pulsing with dark power, he found a data slate revealing Sidious's plan. The Sith Eternal were to groom Obi-Wan as a sacrificial pawn, a false chosen one to distract the Jedi while Sidious built his empire. The betrayal cut deeper than any blade, but it also freed him. He destroyed the sanctum, the explosions shaking the facility as he escaped to his starfighter. As Obi-Wan blasted off Mustafar, a shadow loomed in orbit, a Sith Eternal dreadnought, its cannons trained on his ship. The vessel's commander, Darth Maul, had tracked him, his vendetta now a personal crusade. Maul's voice crackled over the comm, laced with venom, promising to deliver Obi-Wan's corpse to Sidious. The starfighter weaved through laser barrages. Obi-Wan's piloting skills pushed to the limit. He dove toward Mustafar's atmosphere, using the planet's magnetic storms to mask his signature, but Maul's dreadnought pursued, its turbo lasers carving fiery trails. Obi-Wan's mind raced. Maul's hatred was a mirror of his own past, a life chained to anger. He jettisoned his ship's cargo, creating a debris cloud, and slipped into a volcanic canyon, landing on a hidden platform. Maul's shuttle followed, and the two faced off amidst steaming vents and glowing lava. Their duel was a tempest, Maul's dual blades a blur against Obi-Wan's single crimson arc. Maul taunted him, calling him a failure, a boy lost without masters. Obi-Wan parried, his heart torn between rage and restraint. He saw Maul's pain, his betrayal by Sidious, and for a moment pitied him. The duel ended with Obi-Wan disarming Maul, his saber at the Zabrak's throat, but he spared him again, urging him to abandon his vengeance. Maul spat defiance and fled, leaving Obi-Wan alone with his choices. The encounter on Mustafar solidified Obi-Wan's resolve. He could not return to the Sith Eternal, nor could he ignore Sidious's shadow over the galaxy. The Force guided him to Naboo, a world of emerald lakes and golden spires, where whispers of Jedi activity offered hope. In Theed's bustling markets, Obi-Wan moved in disguise, his cloak shielding him from prying eyes. The city's beauty stirred unfamiliar emotions, a longing for peace he had never known. He sought Qui-Gon Jinn, hoping the Jedi could guide him, but found instead a young senator, Padme Amidala, addressing a crowd about Republic corruption. Her words, fierce yet hopeful, resonated with Obi-Wan's growing disillusionment. He followed her to a secluded plaza, where Qui-Gon appeared, sensing his presence. Their meeting was tense, Qui-Gon's calm demeanor clashing with Obi-Wan's urgency. He confessed his origins, the Sith Eternal's lies, and Sidious's identity. Qui-Gon listened, his eyes searching Obi-Wan's soul, and offered a choice: join the Jedi to fight Sidious, or walk alone. Obi-Wan hesitated, the weight of his crimson saber a reminder of his past. Before he could answer, Sith Eternal assassins struck, their blades igniting in the plaza. Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan fought side by side, their styles a contrast. Qui-Gon's elegance against Obi-Wan's raw power. Padme rallied her guards, her courage inspiring Obi-Wan. The assassins fell, but Qui-Gon was wounded, his breath ragged. He urged Obi-Wan to find Anakin Skywalker on Tatooine, the key to Sidious's downfall, before collapsing. Obi-Wan carried him to safety, his heart torn between duty and the bond forming with these strangers. Naboo's serenity shattered, Obi-Wan fled to a stolen shuttle, bound for Tatooine once more. The journey was a crucible of reflection. The Sith Eternal had stolen his life, but Qui-Gon and Padme offered a glimpse of redemption. Yet, his dreams of Shmi now carried a new weight. Anakin, his brother, a child caught in Sidious's web. And folks, that's our story. On Tatooine, Obi-Wan landed in Mos Espa, its dusty streets alive with pod race cheers. He found Anakin, a boy of 9, tinkering in Watto's junk shop. The boy's bright eyes and boundless energy stirred a protective instinct in Obi-Wan, but also fear. Sidious's agents were near. Watto, wary of strangers, alerted local thugs, forcing Obi-Wan to fight through the market. His saber blazed, cutting through blasters and vibroblades, but he shielded Anakin, earning the boy's trust. Anakin spoke of his mother, Shmi, confirming her death years ago, a loss that mirrored Obi-Wan's own. The Force surged, warning of danger, and Maul appeared, his shuttle casting a shadow over the dunes. Obi-Wan sent Anakin to hide, facing Maul alone in a pod race arena. The duel was relentless, sand swirling as their blades clashed. Maul's rage overwhelmed Obi-Wan, wounding him, but Anakin's cry from the stands broke the Zabrak's focus. Obi-Wan rallied, using the arena's machinery to trap Maul in a collapsing scaffold. He fled with Anakin, stealing a freighter, their bond forged in the heat of battle. Aboard the freighter, Obi-Wan tended his wounds, Anakin's questions a constant hum. The boy's innocence clashed with Obi-Wan's guilt, his past as a Sith eternal killer, a shadow he could not escape. He told Anakin of Shmi, of their shared loss, and vowed to protect him. The Force whispered of Coruscant, where Sidious's plans were unfolding. Obi-Wan knew the Jedi Council was his only hope, but his dark past made trust a gamble. As the freighter jumped to hyperspace, he felt Maul's presence lingering, a hunter never far behind. Padme's courage, Qui-Gon's faith, and Anakin's hope fueled him, but the galaxy's fate hung on his next move. Sidious's web was vast, and Obi-Wan, once a pawn, was now a wild card, his heart torn between redemption and the darkness he had always known. The stolen freighter hummed through hyperspace, its engines straining as Obi-Wan Kenobi and young Anakin Skywalker fled Tatooine. The cramped cockpit was a fragile sanctuary, the boy's wide-eyed curiosity clashing with Obi-Wan's churning guilt. Anakin's questions about Shmi, about the galaxy, pierced Obi-Wan's heart, each one a reminder of the life stolen from them both by the Sith Eternal. His crimson lightsaber lay heavy at his side, its blade a symbol of the blood he had spilled and the redemption he now sought. The Force pulsed with urgency, guiding him back to Coruscant, where Darth Sidious's web tightened around the Republic. Obi-Wan knew confronting the Sith Lord would be his greatest test, but Qui-Gon Jinn's words echoed, "Find Anakin, stop Sidious." The boy beside him, unaware of his destiny, was the key, but Obi-Wan's own darkness threatened to consume them both. As the freighter neared Coruscant, a shadow loomed in his senses. Darth Maul, relentless and vengeful, was closing in. The freighter dropped into Coruscant's orbit, the city planet's neon spires a dazzling maze beneath a star-streaked sky. Obi-Wan navigated through traffic lanes, dodging speeders and patrol ships, his heart pounding with the weight of his mission. He aimed for the Jedi Temple, hoping to warn the Council of Sidious's identity. But Maul's sleek interceptor emerged from the shadows, its cannons blazing. The freighter shuddered under laser fire, alarms screaming as Obi-Wan banked hard, weaving through Coruscant skyscrapers. Anakin clung to his seat, his fear tempered by trust in his newfound protector. Obi-Wan's piloting was desperate but precise, diving into the lower levels where neon lights gave way to grime and danger. Maul's ship pursued, a predator in the urban jungle, its missiles carving fiery trails. Obi-Wan jettisoned the freighter's rear shields, creating a spark cloud to blind Maul, and landed in a derelict hangar deep in the Undercity. He grabbed Anakin's hand, pulling him into the labyrinthine streets, the Force warning of Maul's approach. The Undercity was a warren of flickering lights and desperate souls, its air thick with the stench of fuel and despair. Obi-Wan and Anakin moved swiftly, cloaks drawn tight, but Maul's presence was a blade at their backs. The Zabrak's hatred burned through the Force, his dual-bladed saber igniting as he cornered them in a rusted factory. The duel erupted with ferocity, crimson blades clashing in a storm of sparks. Maul's strikes were relentless, each swing fueled by years of betrayal, but Obi-Wan fought with a clarity he had never known. He shielded Anakin, urging the boy to hide among the machinery, his saber a blur against Maul's onslaught. The factory trembled, pipes bursting and sparks flying as their blades carved through metal. Maul's taunts cut deep, accusing Obi-Wan of betraying the Sith Eternal's strength for a weak boy's hope. Obi-Wan's heart wavered, his past as a killer flashing before him, but Anakin's cry from the shadows steadied him. He parried Maul's strike, using the Force to hurl a massive gear into the Zabrak, pinning him momentarily. Obi-Wan grabbed Anakin and fled, but Maul's roar promised he would never stop hunting. The streets led to the Senate district, where Obi-Wan sought Padme Amidala, hoping her influence could reach the Jedi. The Senate's golden dome gleamed under Coruscant's artificial sky, but danger lurked within. Obi-Wan and Anakin slipped into a service corridor, avoiding security droids, and found Padme in a private chamber, briefing senators on Republic corruption. Her eyes widened at Obi-Wan's arrival, sensing his turmoil, but she listened as he revealed Sidious's identity and the Sith Eternal's role. Padme's resolve hardened, her courage a beacon. But before they could plan, Sith Eternal assassins breached the chamber, their blades igniting. Obi-Wan fought fiercely, his crimson saber a reluctant ally, protecting Padme and Anakin. Padme rallied her guards, her blaster firing with precision, but the assassins were relentless. Obi-Wan's heart ached as he cut them down, each death a reminder of his past. The battle spilled into the Senate's halls, marble cracking under Force-enhanced strikes. Padme's leadership held the line, but Obi-Wan knew they needed the Jedi. He sent Anakin with Padme to safety, promising to find them, and headed for the temple, the Force screaming of an imminent trap. The Jedi Temple loomed, its spires a symbol of a life Obi-Wan had never known. He infiltrated through a maintenance shaft, his heart pounding with doubt. Could the Jedi trust a Sith Eternal acolyte? Inside, he found Qui-Gon Jinn, recovered from Naboo's wounds, meditating in the archives. Qui-Gon's calm presence steadied Obi-Wan, but their reunion was cut short as Sith Eternal forces, led by the High Oracle's successor, stormed the temple. The halls erupted into chaos, Jedi and Sith blades clashing in a symphony of light and shadow. Obi-Wan fought alongside Qui-Gon, their styles a dance of contrast, Qui-Gon's grace against Obi-Wan's raw power. The temple's sanctity shattered, statues crumbling as Force lightning arced through the air. Obi-Wan's crimson blade felled Sith acolytes, but each kill deepened his guilt. Qui-Gon urged him to find Yoda, the Council's heart, but the Oracle's successor cornered them in the Council chamber. The priest's dark magic was a storm, but Obi-Wan's vision of Shmi fueled his resolve. He disarmed the priest, sparing his life, and Qui-Gon nodded, seeing the light within him. The Jedi rallied, driving back the Sith, but Obi-Wan knew Sidious was the true threat. As the temple battle raged, Obi-Wan sensed a shift in the Force. Sidious was moving. He left Qui-Gon, racing to the Senate, where Padme and Anakin hid in a secure bunker. The skies above Coruscant darkened, Republic cruisers engaging a Sith Eternal fleet that had emerged from hyperspace. The space battle was a maelstrom, turbo lasers painting the void with fire. Obi-Wan commandeered a Jedi starfighter, joining the fray to protect the planet. His ship danced through debris, dodging Sith fighters, their black hulls marked with crimson sigils. Anakin's voice crackled over the comm, relayed by Padme, urging Obi-Wan to survive. The boy's faith was a lifeline, but Maul's interceptor rejoined the fight, targeting Obi-Wan's ship. Their dogfight was relentless, lasers and missiles weaving a deadly web. Obi-Wan's piloting matched Maul's, but the Zabrak's fury was unmatched. In a desperate move, Obi-Wan lured Maul into a debris field, using a wrecked cruiser's wreckage to trap his ship. Maul's vessel spiraled, crashing into a Sith dreadnought, but Obi-Wan knew he had only delayed the hunter. The unexpected twist came as Obi-Wan's sensors detected a signal from the Sith fleet's flagship, not Sidious, but Count Dooku, a Sith Lord working with the Eternal. Dooku's voice, cold and elegant, offered Obi-Wan a choice. Join him to overthrow Sidious or die with the Jedi. The offer shook Obi-Wan, his Sith training whispering of power, but Anakin's hope anchored him. He rejected Dooku, targeting the flagship's bridge with a proton torpedo. The explosion crippled the Sith fleet, giving Republic forces the edge, but Obi-Wan's starfighter was hit, spiraling toward Coruscant's surface. He ejected, landing in the works, an industrial wasteland of factories and smog. The ground battle awaited, Sidious's presence a dark star in the Force. Obi-Wan's heart raced, his crimson saber his only companion, but the bonds with Anakin, Padme, and Qui-Gon gave him strength. The climax loomed, and the galaxy's fate hung on his next strike. The works of Coruscant stretched before Obi-Wan Kenobi, a labyrinth of smokestacks and molten vats, its air thick with the clang of machinery and the stench of oil. His crimson lightsaber hummed in his hand, its glow a stark contrast to the industrial gloom. The battle in Coruscant's skies raged on, Republic cruisers clashing with the Sith Eternal's dwindling fleet. But down here, the fight was personal. Darth Sidious, the puppet master of the galaxy, awaited, his presence a suffocating weight in the Force. Obi-Wan's heart bore the scars of his Sith Eternal upbringing, the blood he had spilled, and the truths he had uncovered. Shmi's loss, Anakin's hope, Qui-Gon's faith. Anakin was safe with Padme, but the cost of this confrontation loomed large. Obi-Wan moved through the shadows, his steps deliberate, each one a step toward redemption or ruin. The Force whispered of sacrifice, and he steeled himself for what lay ahead. The heart of the works was a vast foundry, its central platform suspended above a churning pit of molten durasteel. Sidious stood there, cloaked in black, his yellow eyes gleaming with malevolent glee. His crimson sabers ignited, twin blades of malice, as he mocked Obi-Wan's journey. A boy forged by the Sith Eternal, now daring to defy his creators. Obi-Wan's saber met Sidious's in a blaze of light, their duel a tempest of precision and fury. The platform trembled, sparks flying as their blades carved through railings and consoles. Sidious's lightning arced, searing Obi-Wan's flesh, but he pushed through, driven by visions of Shmi and Anakin. Each strike was a rejection of his past, each parry a claim to his future. Sidious's elegance was unmatched, his movements a dance of death, but Obi-Wan's resolve burned brighter. He leaped to a higher platform, luring Sidious into a trap, and used the Force to collapse a coolant tower, dousing the Sith Lord in steam. The distraction gave Obi-Wan a moment to breathe, but Sidious's laughter cut through the haze, promising pain. The duel spilled into the Foundry's control chamber, a cavern of flickering screens and hissing pipes. Sidious's power surged, hurling Obi-Wan against a wall, his saber skittering across the floor. The Sith Lord's voice dripped with venom, revealing the final truth. Obi-Wan's abduction was a test, his life a gambit to create a perfect Sith, but his defiance had ruined the plan. Obi-Wan's heart shattered, but the pain fueled him. He summoned his saber, igniting it just as Sidious lunged. Their blades locked, the Force raging around them, and Obi-Wan felt a presence. Qui-Gon, Padme, Anakin, urging him forward. He broke the lock, slashing Sidious's arm, but the Sith Lord's lightning struck again, driving Obi-Wan to his knees. In that moment, Darth Maul emerged from the shadows, his dual-bladed saber blazing. The Zabrak's vendetta had brought him here, not to aid Sidious, but to destroy him. Maul's attack was a whirlwind, forcing Sidious back, and Obi-Wan seized the chance to rise. The three warriors clashed, a chaotic dance of crimson light, the Foundry quaking under their power. Maul's fury was a double-edged sword, his hatred for Sidious blinding him to Obi-Wan's intent. Obi-Wan fought alongside Maul, their blades a united front, but he sensed the Zabrak's darkness would consume him. Sidious's lightning enveloped them, and Maul faltered, his body convulsing. Obi-Wan's heart ached. Maul's pain mirrored his own, a life warped by Sith lies. He shielded Maul, taking the brunt of Sidious's attack, and with a desperate surge, drove his saber into Sidious's chest. The Sith Lord screamed, his body collapsing in a burst of dark energy, the Force rippling with his demise. Maul, wounded but alive, stared at Obi-Wan, his eyes a mix of rage and gratitude. Obi-Wan offered him a choice, freedom or vengeance, but Maul vanished into the shadows, his path uncertain. The Foundry groaned, its structure failing, and Obi-Wan fled, carrying the weight of his victory and the loss it demanded. Coruscant's skies cleared as the Sith Eternal Fleet retreated, Republic forces securing the planet. Obi-Wan emerged from the works, battered but alive, and found Padme and Anakin in the Senate District, guarded by Jedi. Qui-Gon, recovered, greeted him with a nod, his eyes reflecting pride. The Jedi Council, led by Yoda, convened in the temple's ruins, their faces heavy with the truth of Sidious's deception. Obi-Wan stood before them, his crimson saber surrendered and confessed his past. Yoda's gaze was piercing but kind, seeing the light within him. The Council offered him a chance to train as a Jedi, but Obi-Wan declined, choosing to protect Anakin and seek his own path. Padme's testimony, backed by Senate allies like Bail Organa, exposed Sidious's manipulations, sparking reform. The Republic began to heal, its emergency powers rescinded, and a new era dawned under Organa's leadership. The Jedi, humbled, embraced a role as guardians, not soldiers, their temple open to all. On Tatooine, Obi-Wan and Anakin stood before Shmi's grave, the twin suns casting long shadows. The boy's hand in his was a promise kept, a bond forged through loss. Obi-Wan spoke of Shmi's love, vowing to raise Anakin as a brother, free from Sith or Jedi dogma. A familiar figure approached, R2-D2, the astromech droid, beeping softly. Qui-Gon had sent him, a gift from Naboo's queen, tying Obi-Wan's journey to the galaxy's past. R2's presence stirred nostalgia, a reminder of hope amidst tragedy. Obi-Wan's heart bore the scars of his Sith eternal past, but Anakin's laughter, pure and unburdened, was a balm. The galaxy was not perfect. Pirates still roamed, politics simmered, but without Sidious's shadow, the Force flowed freely. Obi-Wan, once a weapon, was now a guardian. His path, one of redemption and love. Across the galaxy, Maul watched from Dathomir, his wounds healing, but his heart unresolved. He had seen Obi-Wan's strength, his choice to spare rather than kill, and it gnawed at him. The Night Sisters whispered of power, but Maul's vendetta softened, his future a question mark. On Coruscant, Padme and Organa drafted the Galactic Accords, ensuring peace between systems, while the Jedi trained a new generation, Ahsoka Tano among them. Obi-Wan's sacrifice, his identity, his past, had shattered Sidious's empire, and though he would never be a Jedi, his legacy was etched in the galaxy's rebirth. As he and Anakin walked into Mos Espa's sunset, R2 trailing behind, Obi-Wan felt Shmi's presence, her love a guiding star. The galaxy endured, and for the first time in a generation, it knew peace. This one was a wild ride, diving deep into Obi-Wan's struggle to break free from a life he never chose. Writing him as a Sith eternal acolyte was tough. His core goodness shines through, even in darkness, and balancing that with Anakin's hope and Maul's rage was a challenge I loved. The Works battle, with Maul's unexpected alliance, was inspired by those epic Star Wars duels where betrayal and redemption collide. R2's cameo, pure nostalgia, tying this to the saga's heart. I hope you felt the weight of Obi-Wan's journey and the galaxy's renewal. Let me know what you think, what worked, what didn't, or what Star Wars what if you want next. Hit that like button, share your thoughts, and I'll see you in the next video.